Hello, this is Coach Tim Campbell, and I'm your host for the Self-Made is a Myth, Make a Difference Together show, where we're talking with successful business owners about their journey of their building their successful business. And because we know that success in business is not something that we can do on our own, we're taking time to recognize the folks who have helped us to excel. Today, I'm happy to have a fellow business owner from Indiana with us today. My guest has been a pilot for over 25 years and now flies both airplanes and helicopters. He enjoys time with his family as well as flying. He says that flying is his meditation. I love that. We're going to ask him a little bit more about that here in a minute. He is most proud of his incredible family and seeing how his amazing 5 kids have grown up. It's my pleasure to welcome TK to the show today. Hello, TK.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate the invite. Looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. Well, hey, let's jump in. I'll have you introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit of your personal story, like where you live and about your family and some of your hobbies.
Yeah, for sure. So again, my name's TK Herman. I am a native of Indiana. So born and raised in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Lived here my whole life. I don't feel like I have a super interesting story, but I suppose there's been some twists and turns along the way that have afforded me some, lessons and things that I can share from an entrepreneur perspective. So I became an entrepreneur. I'm 51. I just turned 51 last month. And I started working for myself when I was probably 26. So, coming up on 25, 26 years now. And, when I quit my job, I went to Ball State University to college, degrees in telecommunications and marketing, got into the tech space. And if you go to my LinkedIn profile and read from the bottom up, it tells a story. And you'll see that I got fired from the first 2 jobs that I had out of school. And I deserved to be fired, quite honestly. But I knew when I quit my job, again, there's a long sort of circuitous route to get to where I am today. And Steve Jobs has a great commencement speech. It's very famous, where he talks about how you can't connect the dots looking forward, but you can connect them when you look backwards.
Right.
And so I was making decisions along the way that was always kind of moving me forward. Forward isn't a direct line. Forward might be a zigzag, like you're tacking in a sailboat. Forward might be, one step backwards so you can take 3 steps forward, sort of thing as well. But I knew when I made the decision to work for myself, again, around the age of 25 or 26, that I think I distinctly remember having a conversation with somebody and saying that, I don't know what I'm going to end up doing the rest of my life, but I know that once I quit my job and I cross this line, I can never go back.
Right.
And I was just always wired that way. I didn't, I grew up in a family. My parents were both teachers when I was young. My dad got out of teaching when I was probably 10 or 11 years old. But neither of them they both have master's degrees, but neither of them were entrepreneurs.
Mm.
And I didn't really grow up with any entrepreneurship in our family, if you will. But I did have some friends growing up whose parents were entrepreneurs, and I always kind of admired them from a distance, kind of watched them from a distance, and just always felt like that was kind of in my blood or in my genes. And really, for the most part, to me, that means just being in control of my own destiny. So if things are going well, then great for me, and if things are going bad, I'm taking the responsibility. It's all my shoulders, and I like it that way.
Awesome. Tell us about your family.
Yeah, so married to my best friend. We've been married a little over 8 years, together 9 years. We have 5 kids. We're a blended family, and our kids are ages 17 to 23. We're down to 1 at home. So our youngest is 17. He's a senior in high school, and we've got 3, including him, that live in him and 2 others that live in Fort Wayne. We have 1 that lives in Orlando, Florida, and 1 that lives in Phoenix, Arizona. And we were blessed with a grandchild. Our oldest daughter got pregnant a few years back, and so we have an almost 3-year-old grandson who is just such a huge blessing to have around our house. They just live 5 minutes down the road, and we're able to see him quite a bit. And it's been interesting too, playing that grandparent role and kind of being able to reflect back, on my life as a parent and seeing things differently, as we've watched, Rocco be able to grow up over the last, couple years.
Sure. Fantastic. So tell us a little bit more about the flying. I know we talked about it last time we chatted, but it's an awesome story.
Yeah, same with the entrepreneurship side of things, and no pilots in my family at all. Just something that I was the kid that would look up at the sky. He's at baseball practice when I was playing little league, for example, and a plane would fly over, or a helicopter would fly over, and I'd look up in the sky, and always was just drawn to that. And one day, in my early 20s, I just said, you know what, I'm going to learn to fly an airplane. And so went to the local, flight school and started taking lessons. It was so long ago now. I wish I could go back and sort of really dig into the mindset that was behind that, but it was just something I wanted to do, and did that. And it's interesting because it really kicked off a lifelong passion and a lifelong progression of learning. Because when you get your license to fly, the saying is you really get a license to learn, and that's 100% true. Um, and I was able to then take that skill set and leverage it in business, and general aviation. Having access to general aviation and business is really a game changer,
Mm.
for sure. So, again, I'm single engine rated, multi-engine rated, instrument rated, and then I just got my helicopter rating about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. And again, that's my passion, that's my meditation. For me, going up, I own a helicopter, and being able to go up in the helicopter and fly a machine that's not really designed to fly, is something that's just a feeling that's hard to describe. And I say too that, like, it was always a dream of mine to learn to fly helicopters. Never ever ever thought I would do it. And so I look back now and I go, I never ever thought that I would learn to fly a helicopter. No way in heck did I ever think I'd own one. And I live out in the country, so I keep it at my house. And there's no freaking way that I ever thought I'd have a helicopter in my house. So it's one of those things. Every time I go outside I just flew yesterday, I might go today. And it's really like a pinch me kind of moment, if that makes sense.
That's amazing. Um, I love the fact that you set a dream, right? And didn't necessarily believe that it was going to happen, but by planting that seed, it just reinforces the whole principle of the law of attraction, right? That when we set dreams,
Yeah.
they end up happening.
And I'll tell you, the helicopter thing was interesting because, here I am with the time I was what, like 49, 48. And flying a helicopter is very different than flying an airplane. And I will be honest with you, there were a couple of times during my lessons that I'm like, I don't need to be doing this. This is definitely something that I could kill myself doing if I'm not paying attention, and maybe this isn't the thing for me. But like everything else, it forced me to push through that and
Mm,
forced me to prove to myself that I could make that happen, that I could do it. And that's, I think, the same kind of drive that's just got me to where I am in my life today.
yeah. There's a popular phrase that says everything that we want out of life is on the other side of our comfort zone, and we've got to be willing to step out and, to your point, push through that perturbation, right? That uncomfortableness, that emotional, negative emotional reaction to the what did I just do, to be able to get to the other side and achieve the things that we want in life. So congratulations.
Yeah, and what aviation really does for me is I self-diagnosed myself with ADD a long time ago. I've always got multiple things going on, and just all kinds of things happening on a regular basis. And aviation to me is the one place I can go. Number one, you're escaping the bounds of Earth, if you will, right? To make it sort of metaphorical, but also it's the one place that I have to concentrate. In fact, one of the things I enjoy the most is as I enjoy instrument flying. So flying in the clouds, flying down, flying an approach down to minimums, where you have to be on your game,
Mm.
and there's no, second guessing, and there's no, I can't, well, if I get this half right, I'm okay. Um, and I really thrive on that kind of sort of solitude, that sort of focus, and that pressure. In a sense, I really enjoy that.
Yeah. So, TK, what's a funny story that your family likes to share about you that you'd be willing to share with us?
Oh boy, I'm sure there's quite a few of them. I think, oh gosh, I'm trying to think of one that comes to mind. I'm somebody that I can't stand messes. I'll share this. My wife would laugh at this if she's hearing this. So, I can't stand clutter and I can't stand messes unless it's my own. If it's my own, I'm totally okay with that. If other people leave things around the house or leave a mess out or so forth, so on and so forth, it drives me crazy. And I'll make comments about it, and she just gives me this look like, "Are you kidding me?"
Right.
I'm like, "Well, but it's my mess. My mess
Yeah.
is okay. It's other people's
Yes.
messes that drive me crazy."
Your mess is organized and you know that it's not a mess,
Exactly.
right?
See,
Yeah.
I try to use that line, and it doesn't actually work.
No, I can't imagine it would. So, TK, you explained that you've basically always been an entrepreneur and how you got to that point. But tell us what's I know you have a couple of businesses that you're running now. Tell us a little bit about what's on your plate today.
Yeah, so we exited my main business, which was a company called Aptera Software. Aptera was about 120 people. We did large scale enterprise level web development, web apps, mobile apps for global brands. A lot of work for high profile companies, and we had an opportunity in mid 2021 to exit that business. That was not on the radar screen. There's a whole story around that. Decided to take that opportunity and sell the business. We'd had the business for 18 years, so we'd worked hard, very hard growing the business. Lots of lessons along the way. Um, but as part of the negotiations, we had behind the scenes, we'd spent a few years and a couple $1 million developing a SaaS product that we had intended to market. There's a really long story behind that, this product. But part of our negotiation was we got to take the product with us and then pick 5 employees to go with us as well. So we spun that out into a separate business. So we've got that going today. I told my business partner I don't want to be president and CEO anymore, and he stepped up and he's the CEO of that business and totally capable of it. So I'm playing more of an investor role. We funded it for the first year, put $1 million in to fund it for the first year and see how things went. They're going really, really well. And so we said, okay, if they go well, we're going to raise money. And so that's the stage that we're in right now. So that's really my focus now is just getting the meeting set with potential investors and looking to raise that money, which is something new to me. I've never done that before. So it's a learning process and it's fun to see. I also, while we had Aptera going as a side thing, I also co-owned 3 Sky Zone indoor trampoline parks.
Yeah.
And I had this interesting juxtaposition during COVID because I had one business, the software company that was growing very well or doing very well and growing fast. And then I had another business that was actually a really solid business that was just literally shut off overnight,
Right.
to no fault of our own and just decimated. And we also exited that business last year as well. But it was an interesting time period because I think I'm in a way I wouldn't want to go through it again, but I'm glad that I had the experience because if I had only had our software business, I think my mindset would have been, well, what's the big deal?
Right.
But I could really empathize and I really understood what a lot of businesses were going through.
Right.
I mean, right in right in my face. So as an example, from March of 20 through November of 20, net of PPP and all of the government programs, we took advantage of all of it. Net of that, we still burned through over $700,000 in cash, just keeping the doors open.
Wow.
And so, it was a very, very interesting time. We were fortunate that things did pick back up in the beginning of 21. So we were able to recover and then exit successfully from that business. But the crazy part of the story was we had the 3 trampoline parks for sale. Pre-COVID, we had a buyer lined up to buy the parks, and we were set to close middle of April of 20, and
Oh,
everything shut down in middle of March of 20.
right.
Um, and so it's also a good lesson. Don't count your chickens before they hatch.
For sure.
Because again, in my mind, I had the money spent. We were going to pay the house off. We're putting a pool in, we're doing all this stuff, and it was like, oh boy. And the true part of the story is literally the week everything shuts down is the week the excavators showed up to start digging our pool. And there was a time period for probably 3 or 4 weeks where I was like going, I know this is bad because I had
Right.
no idea if our software company was going to be affected or not. Unfortunately, it was not. But it was an interesting time for sure. I learned a ton. I mean, I learned more honestly in 20 and 21, and those I'd say 18 to 24 months. between COVID and all that went along with that, and then selling our business and spinning a company out, I think I learned more in those, 18 months than I did in 18 years,
Yeah.
of owning the business, or 20 plus years of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Sounds like there might be a book in there.
It's funny you say that. It's actually really funny you say that because I did sign on with a company to write a book,
Yeah.
actually pre exit from our software company, and then put it on hold because the whole sale of the business came up, and then started to resurrect it last spring, and just didn't feel like the timing is right. So it's still kind of on hold right now.
Okay.
I have an idea of what I want it to be about, but I just need to sit down and start putting
Sure.
words on the screen.
Yeah. So TK, share a story of where someone pushed you or inspired you that you could do it, even maybe though you thought you couldn't, and the impact that that person had on you.
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is gosh, many years ago, I ended up actually in Indianapolis, and went to there's a sales consultant down there, a consultancy called Lucian Associates. I'll give them a plug. I don't know if you know Paul or not,
Yeah.
but so I got on their email list, and this would have been circa 2000 and maybe 9 or 10, and ended up deciding, hey, yeah, I got a notification of like a free 2 hour thing at their office,
Right.
and we'd always struggled on the sales side of things. In the beginning, I was the salesperson, but
Right.
that's hard to replicate,
Yeah.
relationships and that kind of stuff. And so we struggled kind of building out, the how do you hire a salesperson, how do you onboard, and so forth. So I went down to this 2 hour session, met Paul, and afterwards, I said, "Hey, I want to talk to you some more. I'm interested in what you guys do." So we go in his office and we sit down, and it's so funny because I can picture this like it was yesterday. I'm sitting in the chair in his office, and he's sitting on the couch, and he starts asking me questions, and I'm saying, "Well, we're really good at this. We suck at this. We really need to work on this. We're terrible at this. We're okay at this." And so we're probably 5 minutes into the conversation, and he goes, "I got to stop you." And I go, "Okay." And he goes, "Can you please stop saying we and say I and take some responsibility?" I was like, "Whoa." But he was right. And I like that kind of in your face sort of, coaching, if you will. And
Sure.
so we ended up engaging with Paul, and actually become a very good friend of mine, over the years. He's super good guy, but and he helped our business quite a bit. But it was that plus there's multiple other examples where he's just like, punched me in the nose, with information or some insight or whatnot that I really needed to have. And it had a fundamental impact, on not just me personally, or our sales team, but also on the whole business. Because a lot of the stuff that we learned in there, we started obviously implemented it on the sales side of things. But in any business, everybody's a salesperson. Every single person in the organization is in sales. And
Yes.
so we were able to take some of those lessons and let them sort of seep down into the rest of the culture.
Yeah. Fantastic. Yes. It's always good and bad, right? To have that person who's willing to confront us and tell us what we need to hear, even though we may not like hearing
Yeah,
it.
I think I truly believe in whether it's a business or a family, everything is top down. Everything is top down, and that gets harder as the business starts to grow for sure. But you still set the tone,
Yes.
of how the business is going to be. And if the person at the top is not willing to look at themselves, and like I mean, like really look at themselves, and ask the question, okay, something goes awry over here. The only question you needed to ask is, okay, how did I create this situation? How did I cause this? How did I cause this? How did I cause this? And if you're willing to do that, and realize that something, that you're doing, or a way that you're showing up is creating this environment, and then you go fix it in you. And
Yes.
when you fix it in you, that trickles out to everybody else. To me, that's a huge key to success.
Yeah. And it's not always easy to do that, but like to your point, life is a mirror, right? So anything that we don't like that we see happening around us, we have to do exactly what you said, right? Reflect on ourselves and say, what am I doing to cause that? But so much easier to point the finger and blame other people, right? Than look back at ourselves and really do that deep analysis of how do I need to change to get a better result. So
Yeah, for sure. And my wife is also an entrepreneur, and we're also very into, if you will, put quotes around that, like personal development and personal growth. And when we got married, we have a very interesting and a great story because we went to high school together. Just we're married separately to different people for a while, then came back together, and it's interesting because when like even back into college, I think back in college, I read like Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. I would listen to Tony Robbins or read a Tony Robbins book or whatever. But so I always liked that like personal development stuff, but didn't do a whole lot with it. And then when Jill and I got married, she had taken a personal development course a few years previous, and I was intrigued by that. And I'm like, I want to do a course.
hmm.
And so we ended up finding something actually in Indianapolis that was uh, pivotal in my life. I'll say it that way. It was very intense. It was 22 days over the course of 4 months
Hmm.
in person, very experiential. And never before in my life had I ever looked at myself as thoroughly, as authentically as I did in that course.
Oh, wow.
And that sort of, for me personally, set off this desire to continue to grow, continue to grow, continue to grow. And my wife, both my wife and I have both invested heavily in coaches, personal coaches and relationship coaches. But really what it, comes down to is us sort of working our own shit out, if you
Oh, yeah.
will, our own stuff.
Right.
Right. And rather than, and we work that stuff out, and that creates a stronger bond between us. It creates a happier life for us individually. And again, it seeps down to our kids in a significant way. And I think too that seeps into, again, any kind of a business that you'd be in. So I've always been very much the kind of person that's willing to put that effort in and hold that mirror up and look at myself and take responsibility.
Congratulations. I mean, that is the key to why you've had so many successes is your willingness to, to step back and self-reflect. So again, not everyone is willing to do that. So, big kudos to you for being willing to expose yourself that way. And thank you for sharing, because I think folks who are listening uh, can take that away and spend some time and money on their own personal growth and development.
Yeah, I'd highly encourage it. There's so many options out there today. I mean, everything from YouTube, videos, to following people on Instagram, to courses, to books. I don't know if it's more so that I pay attention to it now, or it just seems there seems to be a lot more of it.
Right.
Either one, but either one is a good thing for sure. And back to the business side, like what am I doing now? What's interesting now is that I've put myself back in a position where I feel like I'm low man on the totem pole. It's almost, I'm thinking as we're talking here, it's almost like when I decided to take helicopter lessons. Like I was a pretty accomplished pilot, flew all over the country. And then all of a sudden I put myself in a helicopter and I'm like, I could kill myself. Right. And so now that we've exited the business, I've been spending a lot of time trying to learn about sort of investing and different things like that I had no knowledge of
Mm.
whatsoever. And I find that some of the, because we all have stories in our head, and a couple of my stories are: I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough, I'm lazy, I'm an imposter. Those are my four things. And I know that's all just bullshit stories, but
Yeah.
but it's been interesting because I look at myself, I find myself from time to time going, okay, I did it once or twice, depending on how you want to look at the businesses I've been in. Can I do it again? I don't know if I can do it again.
Yeah.
I find that fear creeping in, and the truth is, I know that I can. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? It's just a matter of taking one step forward, one step forward, one step forward. So I feel like I'm heading in that direction, and I've really tried to surround myself. I've always been the kind of person that I try to put myself in rooms where I'm the low man on the totem pole,
Mm.
and I'm the one that's asking all the questions.
Yeah.
And I have done that now. I'm in a couple of different groups, um, called like investment groups, business groups, where so I go to Nashville, for example, 2 days a month for this particular group that I'm in. And I'm in this group with some extremely successful people, Most people where I live would look at the success that I've had and go, "Oh, that's amazing." I'm nothing, compared to what some of these people have accomplished and what
Yeah,
they've done at a much earlier age than me. Um, and so it's intimidating. It's really intimidating putting yourself in that spot, but that's how you grow.
yeah.
So I put myself in that position and keep pushing forward every day.
I love it. So, TK, what's your biggest learning as a business owner?
You know, it's so interesting. I was just having this conversation yesterday with a buddy of mine who's an entrepreneur and one of my favorite people to talk to. And he and I were talking, and I tell my kids this, and he and I were talking about it too. I honestly don't think being successful in business is that difficult.
Mm,
And when I say that, I don't mean that it's not hard work. I don't mean that it's not risk taking or long hours or tough decisions. That's all true. I just feel like it comes down to delivering a good experience,
mm,
and delivering a good experience on both sides of the net, delivering a good experience to your clients and your customers, and delivering a good experience to your employees. And I just don't think that's all that difficult to do. And it's all centered around great communication.
right.
So for example, in our line of work, where we were doing custom software development projects, and this applies to home building, to, I mean, you name the business, it doesn't matter. I mean, stuff comes up whenever you hire somebody to do something, things come up.
Yeah.
Whether you're the person hiring them or you're the one being hired, things come up, and it never ceases to amaze me of how frequently the communication is poor. I'll say it that way. And our former director of sales coined the phrase, and I love it. He said, bad news is not like fine wine; it does not get better with age. And it's so true because we weren't perfect on all of our projects. We slipped on budgets, we slipped on time,
Sure.
we made mistakes, but we always owned it, and we always corrected it, and we always made sure at the end of the day the customer was happy. Our sort of directive when we started the business, I said there's two like core, absolute rock solid core principles that we need to abide by. And one is every client should feel and will feel like they're our only client.
Mm,
And every client will be a reference when we're done.
mm,
I want our clients to feel like, wait a second, these guys have other customers. I didn't even know that. That's how good of care we take, or how good we take care of them.
yeah.
And then the other part is, it doesn't matter what happens in the project, they will be a reference when we're done. So
Mm.
we could screw up royally on it, and we've got to figure out a way to make it right so that we can go back to them, right? And maybe their reference is, yeah, they really effed up our project, but here's what they did to fix it, and I would 100% use them again, and I would recommend them.
Yes,
And that's really the kind of the core of what we built the business on.
I love it. So we know that business success doesn't happen in isolation. So TK, if I asked you to pick three people in your business owner journey that you're most grateful for being there to help your business growth, who are those three people and how they help you?
I don't know. So that's a tough one because we had a lot of employees and a lot of great people over the years. So I don't know that'd be fair just to pick three people. I mean, I've honestly, I had a great business partner, still do in fact, the company we spun out. With the two of us, we're very yin and yang.
Mm,
And that's one that there's a great book called Rocket Fuel. And Rocket Fuel is a book that talks about, really understanding your weaknesses
yeah.
and then hiring or partnering with somebody that complements your weaknesses. And, that was not something that I consciously knew about or thought about when the two of us partnered up, but that's the way it ended up being.
Yeah.
What I'm good at and where my talents lie, are probably where his weaknesses would be, and what he's really good at and where his talents are or where my weaknesses are.
Yeah.
And so we complemented each other very well. We were 50-50 partners for 18 years. We had a couple of shouting matches, maybe two
Yeah.
or three. I mean, that's about it over 18 years. Got along well, and we built just an amazing, amazing, amazing team of people. And then we built a leadership team in our business and really a culture in our business that was all about taking responsibility. I've got all these like metaphors and sayings and phrases that I would say all the time. But one of the things was that I would happily, or our culture, we have this culture where we'll happily check in with somebody all day long.
Mm.
but if I have to check up on you, now we have an issue. Right. And there's a huge difference between those two things. Checking in is, hey, you said, how's it going? Can I help you? What can I do to help? Checking up is, you said you're going to do this, but under the covers, I don't really trust that you're going to do that.
Yeah.
So where do we stand? And so in our business, we just didn't hire people that had to be sort of babysat. It
Right.
was just expected that we were going to get the job done, and that we would do whatever it took to get the job done. And that does, sometimes that meant longer hours. Sometimes it meant, you could take off early and go to a movie, or
Yeah.
go play golf, or do whatever you wanted to do. We
Yeah.
were super flexible in that. We gave a lot of people responsibility. Certainly there were people along the way that taught me lessons. I mean, most of the people that I worked closely with, taught me a lot of lessons. There's one in particular, that I can remember. This is early on. This is maybe 2 years into the company. We had hired this woman to be a graphic designer for us, and I remember sitting there and I'm like, I don't think she's gonna cut it. I just don't. She just doesn't get it,
Mm.
you know. And I was having the conversations about, okay, I think we're gonna get rid of her. So I bring her into my office and we have a conversation. And in the conversation, I just start asking her questions. Um, and I start realizing that it's not her that's the issue. It was me.
Oh.
It was the fact that I wasn't giving her enough rope. I
Mm.
wasn't giving her enough latitude, to do her job. And so I made the decision in that moment not to fire her, that I'm going to change my approach. And I did. And she just took off like a rocket ship. I mean, she was awesome. And I think as I got more mature and I learned more about, business, that's one of the key factors. I think there's three things, that are vitally critical for a business to be successful. Number one is hire the absolute smartest, most talented, motivated, passionate, kind, happy people that you can hire. Number one. Number two is point them in the direction that you want to go.
Mm.
And the more narrow you can make that, the more rifle approach you can make that, the better. And then number three, and this is the linchpin, and it's the critical one, but it's also the one that's the hardest to do for a lot of people, is get out of their way.
Yeah.
Because another phrase I used to use all the time around the office was, don't let perfect ruin good.
Mm.
And I don't know, I stole that from somewhere. I don't even remember where now. But I love that phrase, because there are countless times where I can think of examples where in our business, there was something. I can think of one right now off the top of my head. It's really inconsequential, but it drives the point home. We were going to do something at like an open house or something like that we were doing, and we had this little committee, and they came up with an idea. It doesn't even matter what the idea was, but I was sitting in the meeting and I'm thinking in my head, that is literally the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. But I wasn't going to say that, right?
Yeah.
But I'm like, this is terrible. It's a terrible idea. And it was one of those things where in that moment I'm like, okay, well, if we do it, I personally wouldn't do that. I think it's a terrible idea, but it's not going to like diminish
Mm.
the event we're putting on
Yeah.
or whatever. So let them go ahead and do that. So they did, and it was a terrible idea. And then the lesson I learned from that was, after the event, we were doing a post-mortem on the event, and that topic came up, and everyone that was involved in the decision-making process recognized that was a terrible idea. No, and so I could have stepped in as the owner of the business and said, "Nope, we're doing it my way." But there's no there's a lot less learning,
Sure.
that comes out of that than allowing them to make the mistake on their own,
Yeah.
and then course correct and see that mistake they made.
Yeah. You mentioned the yin and yang earlier. So I find that a lot of business partners and couples that run the business together tend to be opposites, and so subconsciously, right, we attract our opposite because we know that that's what's needed to complete us. But if we don't recognize it, it can also be this, right? In terms of, this person doesn't think like me, they see the world different than me, I don't understand. But then when we actually get it and we embrace it, it's like, oh yeah, right,
Yeah.
I do need to see the world that way also, right, to make better business decisions and
Yeah.
family decisions.
Well, and I think you're spot on there too, because my wife and I, just in how we live our lives, are very different. Like, I live my life through my head and my logic, and she is heart and emotion.
Ah, yeah.
And that's honestly an area, in full disclosure, I'm not the most empathic person. She's all about empathy.
Mm.
And it's a challenge from time to time because, I learned early on that you can't argue logic with emotion
All right.
because her emotion is just as real as my logic,
Absolutely.
right? And it's almost akin to what we see in today's political world, right? You've got one side that I think looks through things from a logical lens, and one side that looks through things from an emotional lens, and both of those are correct. There's not one that's wrong. The problem is you can't argue one against the other. And so it's, in my marriage, it's forced me to have a lot more empathy and understanding and go, okay, even though what she's experiencing doesn't make logical sense to me,
Yeah.
I get it. It's real, and it's real for her. And if it's real for her, it's real for me.
Yes.
Right. And that same thing holds true in a business for sure.
Yeah. My wife and I are opposites too, and there's been times where uh, she'll just say to me, "Tim, you just need to tell me what you need from me," and I'll be like, "I just need a hug." She's like, "Okay, that doesn't make any sense to me, but I can do that." Right. Right now, it's
Yeah.
clear. She's got her clarity on how she can support me, and we move on.
Yeah.
We use disc profile with our clients, and a lot of times that's the conversation that we have with married couple who are also running the business together, is help them understand that they're opposite and that they see the world differently, and by opening their mind to the other point of view, right, it's actually a good thing for the business. But it can be challenging, right, to overcome that. I don't get it, right? We don't think the same way. I don't
Yeah.
understand the world through your lens.
Yeah, I think too, whether it's a marriage or a business partnership, just having the environment where you can speak your truth,
Mm,
and be honest, and because the more that again, it's equally applicable in marriage as it is in business. But if you find yourself stuffing those feelings down, or those emotions down, they eventually turn to resentment, and resentment's not a good thing in either a business partnership or a marriage.
yes.
And so being able to create a safe space where you can express your feelings, on whatever the topic is vitally important. And it's something that in our marriage we work on a daily basis.
Yeah.
We both fall back into patterns that we've had in the past because that's
Yep.
sort of the default mechanism, and we've done enough work now we can typically catch ourselves fairly quickly.
Yeah.
But it still happens. And I think, I've had to force myself in business also to get out of my comfort zone and say things like, one of the best examples that I could give, and this goes back to the personal development side, was I was in the midst of this pretty intense course that we did about 8 years ago, my wife and I did. And I was sitting in a conference room. And again, mind you, my old stories in my head where I'm not
Sure.
smart enough, not good enough, I'm lazy, I'm an imposter. And so I'm sitting in a meeting at our company, and there's probably, like, I don't know, like 10 or 12 people in the conference room having this meeting, and I just happened to be sitting at the head of the conference table for really no reason. I just sat there, and as this meeting's going on, I'm paying attention to the thoughts that are rolling through my head,
Mm,
and I start realizing that I'm not participating in the meeting the way that I want to participate in the meeting. And the reason is, I'm afraid.
mm,
I'm afraid because there's stuff they're talking about that I don't actually understand. It doesn't make sense to me. And so I want to raise my, hang on, I don't understand. What do you mean by that? What does that even mean?
yeah.
Right. But I'm fearful because this is the bullshit story. I'm fearful because they're going to look at me and go, and again, mind you, I'm surrounded by super smart people.
Yeah.
They're going to look at me and go, dude, you're the president of the company. How do you not know the answer to
Right.
that? Like, how do you not know that? And I'm like, I don't freaking know. Right. So here I am. This is the insanity of it. Because we all have stories,
Yeah.
everyone has stories. Yours are
Absolutely.
probably different than mine, right?
Yep.
But but here I am sitting in a building that I own at a company that I started, surrounded by people that I employ, and I'm holding back
Yeah.
because of the bullshit stories that are going through my head.
Yeah.
And again, I still struggle with that on a regular basis, but I've gotten to the point where I understand where those have come from. I understand that they're just stories, and I force myself around those, if that makes sense.
Yeah, those self-limiting beliefs are huge. They're powerful, right? And I've been on a journey over the last 18 months in a mindset coaching program, and that's the core of it. It's, if we can change our thoughts, right? If we can catch our thoughts, our self-limiting beliefs, and we can change them, then they don't hold us back. But if we allow them to captivate us, right, and we believe them, then your example is what happens, right? In terms of, well, it must be true, so I'm not going to speak up.
Yeah, and I'm fascinated by the like the psychology behind people now, because I look at everybody the way that, in my opinion, and you can say God, universe, whatever you'd use, but I would say I look at everybody the way that I believe God created them. And my definition of that is I believe everyone has a loving heart, a joyful soul, and an abundant mind.
Uh,
Those are my three things. But those three things, the loving heart, joyful soul, abundant mind, get crusted over and covered up with gunk and dirt, dust and mold and mud over the years,
yeah.
from things that happen in your life from an early age on up. And so it's interesting because when I look at people and I look at like maybe somebody that's reacting in a way that in a meeting, or they're reacting to XYZ happen on a project, and it just is out of the norm, put quotes around the word norm, out of the norm. It's fascinating to me to go, okay, well, why are they acting that way?
Yeah.
Because at their essence, I know who they are, and there's a reason that they're reacting that way, and then be able to kind of help them navigate through that. And there's several examples over the years where we've had situations come up, and because at the end of the day, any business, it doesn't matter what the business is, any business, it's always about the people,
Right.
always about the people. And not only internal inside of the four walls of the business, but also external,
Mm,
because we would always talk and tell our people that our number one goal is to make the person on the other side of the transaction, because it doesn't matter if we're doing a $10,000 project or $1 million project for somebody is signing that deal on the other side.
mm,
And and our job is to focus on making that person as successful as they possibly can be. Because if we can focus on that one person and make them incredibly successful, number one, if they're successful, then their team's successful. If
right.
their team's successful, then that helps their department or their division become successful, and it kind of trickles up,
Sure.
from there. And then also us helping make that one person successful, then that might help them get a promotion. That might help them get a new job at a different company or whatever. And then we're creating sort of this army of advocates,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's inside of a big company or they move and go elsewhere.
Right.
And that's proven time and time again, where we've had somebody leave a business, go to another company, and now we have an immediate in there because we did a great job,
Yeah.
taking care of them. The other thing I would say too is that, we've always tried to look at people that walk in the door as though they have a t-shirt on that says, I want to feel wanted, needed, and appreciated,
Mm,
we tried to treat people that way, because I wanted our employees that worked for us to just be happy in life.
yeah.
'Cause my belief also is that if we could do everything in our power that we could do to help them be the happiest they could possibly be outside of work,
Yeah.
that bleeds over all day long into work, and they bring that vibe and that energy with them. And so we would invest, in doing a lot of things that were not really directly work related,
Mm,
uh, but to create, a community and a culture,
yeah.
within our company that was special.
That's awesome. So TK, it sounds like you've been blessed with some incredible people. In fact, earlier you said, "Hey Tim, there's too many to even start to name them all." So if they were all here on the show today, what would you want to say to them in terms of the impact they've had on your journey?
Yeah, I will obviously a big thank you, because I mean, nobody gets anywhere without, solid people around them for sure. And I'm not the smartest, person. I took the risk, and continue to invest and so forth. But the business was really, and our clients were really taken care of because of them, not me,
Mm,
directly. So I very much appreciate that. I think, uh, again, I say this because I've been an employee in the past, and I've also had people that have sort of been like mentorish type people to me, even if they didn't know it,
Yeah.
right? People I would look up to. And um, I never once really thought about when I'm looking up to somebody else that they might be looking at me in the same way.
Mm.
It's like our kids. Like when we have kids, for example, the truth of the matter is, we as a parent, I think unfortunately there's no instruction manual. So
Right.
you have this mindset that it's my job to shape this child and to grow this person into, a responsible human being, a responsible adult. But the truth of the matter is, if you really break it down, is the kids are there to be a reflection on you and to teach you lessons.
Yeah.
It could be a lesson in humility, could be a lesson in, just letting something be and letting something unfold on its own, whatever it
Yeah.
is, right? But the same thing's true there that I've taken away. I believe I've taken more away from the interactions and working with the great group of people that I've been able to work with than I probably have given them. At least that's how I feel, if that makes sense. And so I would want them all to know that they've had a tremendous impact, on me in just a variety of ways over the years.
That's awesome. I love the analogy to raising kids of so that we learn and get just as much out of it. I know from my career of managing people that the most rewarding thing has been to see them, the team grow and develop and become better versions of themselves, and know that in some small way, I had a part of that. But to your point, also, I grew and developed as a manager, right, and became a better version of myself because of the experiences I was allowed to have with working with them. So
So yeah. One of the coolest things, sorry to interrupt you,
oh,
is
please.
the person I mentioned earlier that I almost fired, and didn't, because I realized I wasn't giving her enough rope. So she's now, I don't know actually what her job title is, but she has a very, very high profile job at Adobe.
Mm.
Where, like, to the point where she's on stage with the CEO,
Oh, that's
at
wow.
their conference. She's on stage, on the main stage at the Apple Development Conference. And so watching, because I'm Facebook friends with her, and watching her, some of the videos that she posts like that, it's pretty cool, right? Because I'm able to say, there's there's something, I'm sure that there's something that she took away,
Yep.
from my interactions. And it's not just her. We've had multiple people go on to other careers, and other roles that are pretty impressive. And my whole purpose of getting out of the bed in the morning is I want to have a lasting impact on people I come in contact with. And so if there's something that somebody can take away, and even 10 years later or
Mm.
15 years later, go, hey, I learned that, or I heard that, or this had an impact on me, that to me is really fulfilling, like at a soul level,
Yeah.
for me. And that's really what I strive to do, is just kind of show up that way. And we operated the business that way. That's what I think created the culture and made it special. If somebody walked in the door, I didn't pretend that they're going to work for us for the rest of their lives. I mean,
Yep.
I always say that there's three paths people could take. Path one is you're going to be here for the long haul, which is in today's world not all that likely. Path number two is you will outgrow the company.
Mm.
So what you want to do, is something that either A, we don't offer, or B, we offer it, but there's already somebody in that role and they're not going to leave.
Right.
And so in order for you to further your career, you have to leave.
Yeah.
And then path number three is the company will outgrow you. And that happened every once in a while, maybe once every couple of years, but not that frequently.
Yeah.
But I think framing things that way and knowing that up front, when somebody did leave, we always hated to see people go. There's people that left that were really, really, uh, big personalities, that contributed a lot to the business personality wise,
Right.
and sort of energy and vibe wise, but they were leaving to further their career. So my belief was I was sad to see them go, and almost in a way the friendship kind of changes. But at the same time, how can I be unhappy for them? How can I be upset about that?
Right.
If
Yeah.
they're moving forward. So
Yeah. I love it. Well, TK, it has been an absolute pleasure speaking with you today. Thanks for being on the show.
yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate you inviting me and allowing me to share some of my story.
To everyone who tuned in, thanks for listening to Self-Made is a Myth show with your host, Coach Tim Campsell. Be sure to help us spread this movement by liking the show and talking about it on social media. And to join our movement, go to bemadtogether.com. All right, folks, that's a wrap. Make sure to pay it forward, and I'll see you all next time. Take care.